Welcome back to another empowering episode of the POW Factor, the podcast where we share stories and strategies from incredible women who are driving change across the various industries. I'm Jory Mundy, your host, and today we have a special guest, a dear friend of mine, Lori Thompson, who is the Vice President of Universal Alloy Corporation. Now, Lori's career speaks for itself, starting out her early days as a human resources specialist, spanning her own career growth to becoming the Vice President of Human Resources in her current role. Now, obviously, she has so much experience and insight that she's going to share with us. I cannot wait to get into this conversation. So without any further ado, let's welcome Lori to the show. Lori, I am so excited you are here. I cannot wait to delve into this conversation. I know I have been able to be a part of just a friendship with you and fellowship with you over the years and watch you elevate. And so I can't wait for everyone to hear about your incredible journey. And so I always love to start off with a question related to the POW, which is the power of women. And so my question is, when have you felt an experience or moment in your journey where you felt the power of you?
Well, Jory, thank you so much for having me, and I cherish our friendship, and so it's an honor to be here with you today. I would say one of those milestone moments for me was when I was leading an HR business partner team. HR is the work I've been doing for the last 26 years, and it happened to be a group of all women, and these women were in a place in their career. Most of them were where they were looking for that next step and looking for some help and guidance in getting to wherever that next step was going to be. Some of them were going to be people leaders. Some of them wanted to just advance as an expertise in their role, and so it hit me at that point that one, I thought, because I still have my own clients that I was taking care of on a day-to-day basis. But it hit me that one, wow, this is, so much thought goes into tailoring someone's development plan, and I thought, this is an honor. It's and definitely a challenge in a lot of ways. But wow, how rewarding to get to help these women, not just in their careers, but, I think, I always look at the person as a whole, that, how we're advancing usually at work is also just in our lives in general. And so helping these women get to the next level in their aspirations in their career, but also even just personally, and how rewarding that was, really helped me to understand that was kind of my niche. I'd done HR work for several years at that point, but really developing and helping people to get to that tailored plan and achieve it. And truth be told, I think every woman on my team is now in elevated roles. Most of them are leading their own teams and departments and really thriving. So yes, that was definitely one of those moments where I kind of was discovering what I wanted to continue doing at my discipline.
I love that. And I love one of the things that you talked about just developing that tailored plan and some of the challenges around that. So I want to unpack that just a little bit more to say, as you were doing that and working with women and trying to really decipher, hey, what's the best plan for them? What do you feel like were the challenges on their end as you guys were having this discussion to unpack, eventually the path that they would go down?
I think self-awareness is one of those things that, once you become self-aware, I think it's easy to take for granted. If we could all kind of dial back and remember when we were trying to figure out what our strengths are, and I'm definitely a believer in play to your strengths, and so I think part of those discussions, because each of these women were very different and had very different natural talents. And HR is interesting because there's so many different facets within HR that if you're really strong in one area and maybe not as strong in another, that's fine, but it's just, it's understanding that and really working to play to your strengths. So, some of them were very natural business partners. They naturally got the strategy, the business leaders, clicked with them very easily. Some were more HR practitioners. So more process driven, operational driven. Again, both are super important, but really kind of helping them to unpack what their strengths were, and really developing. We used a very common tool called an IDP, an individual development plan, to help track, what their goals were going to be. And, some of them wanted to, who didn't have a certification, wanted to go through, professional certification routes. And again, just, but I think it's so important that they are tailored and individual, because I think most of us have been treated, like a cookie cutter approach at times. And that's usually not very successful. So having the individual development plans was helpful, and it's just fun. It's fun to see people have those light bulb moments, and also to get feedback. And if I'm telling them, you are a natural. I'm thinking about one woman individual, and she's just such a natural in HR, and business leaders love working with her because she can apply all the compliance and the policies and a lot of the employment laws that go into HR, and also help it to make sense to the business. And so those types of individuals typically make great business partners. But she didn't realize that at first. And then I think once, she started to get the feedback from me, and then she started to really listen in more to what her clients were saying. It really helped to build her confidence.
Yeah. You said a couple of things that resonated, and I like to pull them out, and they come into the questions that I want to go into even more. But you made a good point about playing to your strengths. And I know that has been, just questions throughout the time. And even in my experience and in my career journey, where it's like, you have an opportunity that has come forth, and it's recognizing for those for our listeners who may have an opportunity that would be out of alignment as they would think, but is it playing to your strengths, right? And is it an opportunity where you're leveraging those strengths? And if you have, different areas where you can refine, of course, weaknesses, we all have those, but you're able to leverage and play to your strengths and build upon that, then that gives you an opportunity. So you're putting yourself on a path for just more success as you're building. So I love that you talked about that, playing to your strengths. And then you also talked about just the IDP, the individual development plan, and specifically around, different certifications. And so I wanted to ask you specifically, just throughout your journey, right? You have had continuous learning and growth and accreditations and certifications. How important is that for women that are wanting to excel in their career, whether they're in HR or just in various industries?
I think I probably give an atypical answer to that question than some people might. For me, experience is the foundation. I think certifications are great. But I always will add on to that to say getting real and meaningful experience is so key. And so one of the things that I very purposely do with anyone who works on my team, of course, you have to assess the readiness. Are they are they ready for, I never want to set someone up to not be successful. And so, of course, you identify that readiness factor. And of course, you're always there, for any kind of support needed, along the way to phone a friend or, whatever it might be. And, but certifications, like I said, definitely help give you, certain, knowledge that, again, kind of going back to that business partner, whether you're in finance, whether you're in sales, whether you're in HR, whether you're marketing, we're always aligning and supporting the overall business and those business strategies. And so giving people the opportunity to have experience and get to work with more senior level leaders, so they're understanding what the business strategy is. And they're also able to help start, building relationships and building rapport with those leaders. So I've worked on teams where the leader likes for everything to every communication, every meeting to flow through them. And my approach is, to bring alongside, once someone's ready, bring alongside that person who I'm going to see as a successor for me in a certain area, and then have them, get experience watching how I'm interacting, and also, and never being a carbon copy of me, but seeing like, okay, this was effective, maybe this wasn't effective, and I always think of the term, take a page out of someone's book. I might see, someone interacting and think, wow, that was really powerful. Note to self, I want to put my own thumbprint on that, but like, I'm going to try that. And then sometimes you see the opposite. Sometimes it's like, oh, that was not effective. And, that approach, I'm probably not going to try that approach next time. So again, getting that exposure, and then, once the person's ready, letting them like run point on if it's another project, or if it's another, employee situation that needs to be handled, letting them run point and me be in the background. And then that, like I said, builds that rapport with the leaders. So, because they'll continue to call me if they think I'm the only person that could help solve their problems. And that's not what I want. And then those folks on my team aren't going to get the experience that they need to try it themselves, and also build that credibility with the different key stakeholders in the business that they're going to need in order to continue to be successful within the organization. I love something that my grandmother said, actually. She used to say, every new thing that we accomplish is another notch of confidence on our belt. And if you don't have the opportunity to accomplish something, to have the ownership and the autonomy to try something new, then I think that confidence can be stifled. So almost everything I do is to help build confidence in other people.
I have so many ways that I want to go based on what you just said. And I'll start off with, you talked about experience and, the certifications, right? And there's been questions that just women who want to elevate in their career, and they're just at a different place where maybe they haven't had the opportunity to build experience, right? But they're trying to also put themselves in a position so that they can get there. So if does anything come up for you in terms of advice for those that are in that juxtaposed position, right? They don't have that opportunity yet to build experience, and they're trying to put themselves on the path. And so they feel like the certification may be the best place to start. But, what can they do in the meantime as they're in that in between?
Great question. I think the certification definitely is an eye catcher. I think, no doubt, whether you see it on someone's LinkedIn profile, whether you see it at the top of someone's resume, whether, if you're a project manager and you've got your PMP, or you're an HR person and, you've got one of your SHRM certifications, or you're in, finance and you have a CPA. So no doubt that definitely is an eye catcher, and something great to have. I believe in people, and I think if you have opportunities where you can network, especially, and I love networking outside of my industry. And so I gave this advice to someone years ago when I was in broadcast media, and she said, I always want to stay. I want to stay in broadcast media. And I said, that's great. I said, but I would challenge you to surround yourself with other people in different industries, because I guarantee you will be better at solving different types of challenges. Because if you're in manufacturing, broadcast media, healthcare, they're all made up of people, but usually there's certain challenges that are more indicative in certain industries. And I've never wanted to be a one-trick pony. So I always like to make sure that, no matter, if it's an operational person, if it's a finance person, an IT person, a marketing person, that I want to be able to help them in whatever that challenge is, that they're because usually people are coming to me because they have something that needs solving. And so I think surrounding yourselves with other, if you have an opportunity, and maybe it's, we all have different, like, within HR, there's SHRM, and there's other, HR platforms that you can meet people in, all different kinds of industries, but that are in your discipline. And I think that, a lot of us have different types of organizations. Women in Technology, I know is another organization. So I think I would say if you aren't aware of any organizations, maybe do a little bit of research and find out what organizations are, getting some good reviews and some good chatter around, and seeing if you can plug in. And so, I mean, you and I met through a national women's organization that, and we've been friends for several years now. And so I think those can be great opportunities. And also don't get discouraged if you try one and it doesn't end up being, what you wanted it to be. I think, keep trying. But the more excellent people you can get exposure to and learn from, it doesn't have to be in a classroom setting. It could just be, in conversations like this. And I mean, you and I, have spent years, encouraging each other through, simple text messages, or, virtual calls. And, but I think all of those things, even organically, just build who we are and help us to grow. And then you look back and you're like, wow, and again, I'll go back to confidence, I do have the confidence now maybe to start reaching out to individuals, and ask them for a meeting, maybe ask them for a coffee and pick their brain. But I do believe in most of our just knowledge and wisdom, it comes from other people and learning from them.
I almost got choked up, Lori.
Oh.
But it is true. It's relationships. It's relationships and it's people and being strategic and intentional about building those relationships wherever they may, come from. And organizations, I would totally agree, is a really good place to start. And one of the things I just want to highlight, and there's been many conversations, but I just want to shout you out as it relates to sponsorship, because what you just described, your approach in bringing people along and giving them the opportunity and sharing different strategies on how to tailor an approach so that, it's building upon, them climbing to the goal of what they want to climb to, is the true definition of sponsorship. That is being able to effectuate the position that you have so that you are sharing that success and building. And I feel like that is truly the key for rising leaders and women that want to be impactful and to really get to where they're going. It really takes sponsors. So I wanted to take that moment to say that, and for the listeners, these are the women, these are the types of women and other individuals that you want to partner with, because of that strategy, that mindset of being able to cultivate that relationship and to capitalize on the mindset of this is how you build another person, their confidence, and how you put them in a position so that they can be successful, based on what they're wanting to do. So, so just wanted to shout you out on that, because I definitely believe that is key to rising in any profession. So one of the things that comes up is as I'm thinking about just career transitions, right? There are so many things that happen and people that just are in a different place in their career. And I know, maybe there have been different opportunities or times in your journey where you've experienced career transitions. What advice would you give to those individuals that maybe are navigating a career transition so they can put themselves, in the best place to continue on their journey of success?
I love that question. And I think the best way I would describe what I've done, and I think this is good advice, is it goes back to self-awareness. Know what you are. I always have 3 top things that are like non-negotiables. And so I always know why I am looking for a certain job. And sometimes, people will reach out to you. You're not looking and someone just reaches out with an opportunity, and, and it does align with that next chapter, what you want that next chapter to be. But I would say maybe the best way to put it is, always stay in the driver's seat, because, you are in control of your own career. And I think that having that mindset I think one gives you that level of confidence. You'll hear that word from me a lot, and because it is your career, and that mentality of you owning it and being in the driver's seat, having identified what those you can call them non-negotiables, deal breakers are going to be, will help you to identify when you see that next opportunity if it's the right thing for you, or if it's not, if it doesn't meet that criteria of what you envision for your next chapter. And I'm a very blue sky person, and so because I like having a lot of options, and so I like to give other people a lot of options. So I never want to put myself in a box and have too many restrictions. And so that's why I like to keep things open and keep things very simple. So and I think acknowledging that those non-negotiables will change. That my top 3 non-negotiables when I was 27 are very different now that I'm 47, and they were different when I was 33 or 40. And so I think, again, just staying in touch with you, and that self-awareness, and owning this is what I want, and not negotiating that, having those non-negotiables. I keep mine to 3. At one point I was in a role, great job. It was an incredible opportunity, and there had come a point in time where my 3 non-negotiables had changed. However, at the same time, what I took that job for, I had achieved. And so that was, I think sometimes it can be hard to know, is it time to leave? And so again, if you check in with yourself and you remember the reasons why you said yes to that role, it could help you make that decision whether or not it's time to leave, or if you still haven't accomplished what you had initially set out to accomplish and you still want to stay a little bit longer. So in that situation, my 3 non-negotiables had changed. I had achieved what I set out to do in that role. So I felt great. Even though it was a great opportunity, I knew that there would be a line of people behind me who applied for the job I was leaving. It wasn't that it was a bad opportunity. It was just that, I was ready for my next chapter. And so I was moving towards something, definitely not running from something. But it's again, the self-awareness, being very intentional and deliberate. I don't think I've ever moved to another job for the same reason. It's always been for a very different reason. And it could even be, I know that, we all go through, we have lives outside of work, and, people have children, and that changes priorities. People have aging parents, and that changes priorities. And so there's definitely times, that we take a step back, and so at one point in my, probably about 10 years ago, I wanted, I'd had pretty horrendous commutes most of my career. And so one of my 3 things was, I want more me time. I'd gone through something, I had a personal situation. I don't mind sharing this. I had breast cancer 10 years ago. And with that, I think it just, again, it wasn't, I think it was just very organic. My mind shifted, and I thought, what, me spending 3 hours a day in a car, an hour and a half driving to work and an hour and a half driving home, I think I'm done with that, and I'd like to spend more time at home with my husband, with my pets. And so for the last almost 10 years, I've been working, much closer to home in my community. And so again, our priorities and those non-negotiables evolve and shift, throughout our careers. But I think staying in touch with what's important to us, and that self-awareness is key.
Yeah. So 2 things. I love that you talked about just the question on when should I leave? If you're in a position, because I know there have been several people just, throughout the course of just life, that have asked me that question, that have asked others that question. When do you know when it's time to leave? And I love that you mentioned, one, your non-negotiables. Are they still where they are, or have they shifted? And two, did you accomplish what you set out to accomplish? And checking in with yourself and answering those questions may be exactly where you need to really consider in order to make that decision. So love that you said that. And also just being open and sharing, that is huge, Lori. Just the personal situation that you went through. And I feel like it also sheds light for women that are going through situations in their lives, and you can see how you can continue to be successful and thrive and be able to be confident and still do things that are fulfilling for you in the midst of everything that's happening. And I feel like we need to see that. Women need to see what's happening, and that you can continue to evolve and thrive and be an incredible working woman and be successful in that, and also be okay with what's happening in life and shift when you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's so very important to mention and pull that out. And so my next question I wanted to ask is really for someone that is starting in their career. Okay.
Okay.
What would you say is the most important that they should focus on?
Most important.
Like if they're
I
just
think
starting
I'm
out.
gonna. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. If they're just starting out and they have this big goal, they want to just become their best selves, and they want to get to the highest, pinnacle of success for them in their career. What might be the best piece of advice that you have for them?
So this is going to sound super, super simple. My little brother, he's 3 years younger than me, so he's not young anymore. But when he was graduating from college, and so I had all of 3 or 4 years of corporate America experience ahead of him, and
Mhm.
I said, David, I said, if you do 3 things, no matter what company you work for, you will be a rock star. And I said, show up. I said, you cannot knock it out of the park if you don't show up. I said, that sounds super simple, but you have no idea how many people just don't show up to work. So that's one, you got to show up. 2, I said, you have to have integrity. If you say you're going to do something, so integrity in that kind of sense, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you say you're going to call somebody back by the end of the day, you do it. If you say you're going to email somebody back with a certain deliverable by the end of the week, you do it. And the third thing is you want to be that person that your boss can hand something off to you and they don't have to think about it again, because they know it's going to be done on time. It's going to be excellent. They literally, it has been, you've taken it off their plate. I said, if you can do those 3 things, you will shine in any company that you work for, and they'll be happy to have you. And so I would say, I still think that advice that I gave over 20 years ago is still probably pretty accurate. And so a lot of that, ultimately, if you boil all that down, it's building credibility. It's in building credibility, which also goes hand in hand with building trust. It's in the details, those little things about being responsive, about if you say you're going to call somebody back, you do. I mean, it's people can count on you, because all of those things, every time you don't call somebody back when you said you would, every time you don't get back to somebody with on time with the deadline, that erodes trust and erodes credibility. And I think that for anyone starting out, being very focused and intentional on building that credibility, having that integrity, which ultimately builds trust, is the foundation. That's all the relationships that I have throughout the last 26 years of my career. I would not have them if I didn't have that level of credibility and trust with those individuals.
Yeah. And I feel like too that it goes hand in hand with not over promising and under
Yes.
delivering. That's a key. It's you can have all of the desire and inspiration to do a thing, and you have that goal, but it's keeping things in perspective to make sure that if you say you're going to do that thing, that you can truly deliver on it. Otherwise, it's just hold your tongue until you know for sure that you can do that. But that makes a lot of sense. Integrity and showing up and really doing what you say that you're going to do. It is so pivotal, to making sure that your credibility, stands.
Yep.
And yeah, so
That's
that's key.
such a good point about not over promising. And because I mean, it's, uh, we would all love to say yes to every single thing.
Hmm.
But if you think about it in those terms of, I want to do this excellently. And I know if
Hmm.
and a lot of times you don't have to say no to
Hmm.
someone, but you can say, I've got some, a really big project, that's due by the end of the week. Is it okay if we connect next week? Or, would this be
Hmm.
okay if it was, if I got this to you by the end of the month? And more times than not, I would say, gosh, I'd say probably like 95% of the time in my experience, people will work with you and they'll say yes. Um, but they're going to ask for it immediately. But if you let them know and they understand that you're not pushing this, deliverable down the road, but you want to do a great job and give it the attention that it needs. And
Hmm.
one of the words that I hope comes up today, because it's my favorite word, is partner. And again, it goes to building that trust and credibility. I think when people ask the question, if you could describe yourself, in one word, what would it be? And I hope the word that people would use to describe me is partner. Is that she's a great
Hmm.
partner, which encompasses so many great things. That means that
Hmm.
you have the trust and credibility, and also people know that you have their back. Like you're not going to leave them hanging. If you asked me, if I'm on your project team and you've got a lot of deliverables and you're counting on me to get
Hmm.
whatever my action item is to you, so you can then do all the other 20 different things that you need to be doing as the project manager. I've got your back, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
leave you hanging and
Hmm.
without the information that you needed in order for you to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Partnerships and relationships, and just feeling like you said, that someone has your back.
Hmm.
And really too, I feel like that joins in with having a servant like mentality,
Yep.
just realizing that in the midst of everything that we're being asked to do, that you're willing to serve others, and you're willing to partner and cooperate, and to make sure that everyone, for the most part, that you're working with is meeting their goals, because
Yep.
it is that shared vision, those shared goals that make us all successful. So yeah, I love that you said that. And so I know we jumped into that question, but I want to back up and I want to talk about adversity,
Okay.
right? Because adversity obviously shapes us. And I know just throughout the course of your life, I know you talked about just, your personal situation. But I want to delve in and get an understanding from you on when someone is up against maybe a roadblock or an adversity in their career. Tell me about your experience, how you've overcome adversities that, have come up for you.
The most effective thing that I have done is talk about it. I can think about a role. I was in a situation where uh, I had such a fantastic boss, and she. I think this is where I probably learned that value of getting really good experience, and that building again your confidence, kind of in your, for lack of a better, your toolbox
Mm-hmm.
of just a professional expertise. But and so she would move us around to support different clients within the
Mm-hmm.
business, and so it was almost like starting a new job every time she would do that. So um,
Mm-hmm.
so I got, put in with I'd been with the organization, for 2 or 3 years at this point. Then I started to I got assigned a new client group. And so it was probably 2 weeks in, and this was a very different part of the business than I had worked in before. And it was very administrative, which is not my strong suit. And, and, in more operational administrative. And I definitely shine more in the strategic business partner realm. And so she was leaving the office one night, and I mean, it felt like I had like an elephant on my chest. I felt stressed. I'd never ever had this feeling before at work. Up until then, things, usually, I mean, my skill set and natural talents usually align to the role I was in. And so this was the first time I was at a crossroads, and, and I didn't know I didn't know what to do. And so she was leaving one night, and her office was across the hall from mine. And she said, "Hey, have a good night." And I just blurted it out. I just said, and what I said totally transparently was, "I hate my new job." And she was like, I could tell she was stunned. She was like, "Okay, let's talk about this." And, and so I started to tell her, I said, I just feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm working twice as hard, and I'm not accomplishing half of what I usually accomplish. And so it was such a great, like, front row seat at what we all kind of preach about sometimes, about aligning jobs with people's skill set. And I thought, I'm in a round hole, square peg situation here. So it's never fun being on the learning curve, but it's always nice once you have that learning. And so I feel like after that situation, I have been so much more understanding and empathetic when I see that there's a great employee, they're just in the wrong role, and because I have lived firsthand at working twice as hard and knowing that your output is not as great as it usually is. And I remember even talking to my SVP later, because I still stayed in the client group for about a year before, once she could put me in with another client group, she did. Everything was fine. But at one point, my SVP was asking me, how's it going, Lori? And I said, I feel like I'm failing. And he was like, "Oh, no. You're one of, what did he call us? Like with all of the high potentials, he would, some kind of like, you're one of our rock stars, you're one of our shooting stars." And I was like, I don't think you're hearing me. I mean, I don't feel that way, and so I could tell, again, they both worked with me. Everything turned out fine, but I think talking about it, I don't know, honestly, I don't know if I would have ended up resigning if I hadn't talked to my leadership about it, and then, them being supportive. And then of course, once there was another open position, to slot me into it. But those were hard conversations, and they're humbling. Yeah. It was humbling to, like, when you're that person who's been like, you've not seen anything but kind of things coming more easily to you and success, you kind of get hit in the face with, oh my gosh, like I'm struggling, and, I want to do good, and I'm giving all this extra energy, and it's not, I don't like what I see, even if my boss is telling me, oh, it's great, it's fine. Like I know I can do better. And so I think that, that was definitely one of, and that's the only time in my career, thank goodness, that I've had that happen. But again, I think talking about it, just kind of, the problem named is the problem solved. I think that for me has always been, whether it's personal adversity, adversity, within a professional setting. I think that, even if it's kind of messy, like I just blurted it out to my boss, we got through it, and she called me last week, actually, so both of those individuals, I still have great relationships with, but I think part of that it's that going back to the, authenticity, honesty, integrity, trustworthiness, because you don't share something like that with somebody unless you trust them. And I knew they would have my back. And,
Yeah.
but I think so many people don't say anything, and they just,
Mm-hmm.
there's the whole, phrase like, quiet quitting, and, which is a shame, because I do think that most things, not everything, but so many things can be resolved, but you got to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem named is the problem solved. That's I that is key. And I love that you said there was trust there before you blurted that out. And I want to say that for our listeners to say
I
to
had
say
known her. I'd actually worked with her at another company. I had known her
okay.
for years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like there are so many things in that. It took courage, right? Confidence, having the trust in that relationship to be transparent and to have that authenticity so that you can say like, hey, this is coming up for me. This is a problem for me. How can we fix it? And being able to discern, right? And
Yes.
being judicious in your judgment of saying, can this person handle if I say this to them, and will they be willing to work through that? Because I feel like that's the other layer, and I feel like that foundation that you mentioned is incredible. So yeah, that is I love that authenticity at its finest. Yeah. So I have one more question before we wrap up, and it's really just to pull from your own reflective experiences. So if you were to go back to your younger self and you were to say, self, here's what I would do differently, or here's what I would keep the same, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would, honestly, it's the same advice I would give myself today, which
Okay.
is, and it's about worrying. I think
Mm.
it is so, and I actually feel like I'm better than most people about, it's a conscious effort not to worry, but gosh, I mean, I was in a situation recently where I was reminded of something my mom told me years ago. And I mean, this of course there's no research behind this. This is just her, a saying that she used to say, 95% of the things that we worry about never happen. And my life experience, that seems to be very true. And so I would say to my younger self, and I continue to say to myself, worrying does not help. It does not help anything. It's distracting. It causes a lot of anxiety and stress. I think that worrying, I've never seen worrying bring about any good. Um, and so like I said, I continue to remind myself of that, and and do my very best to practice that, so I can stay positive and stay present in the moment, because I think you can't do both. You can't be kind of distracted by worrying about something and stay positive and present. And so, so my focus, I would say, to my young self and current self: stay present, stay positive. And then remind me what your second question was.
Yeah, no, that was it.
Okay.
Is what advice would you give? And there are so many people I feel like that just spend time worrying, right? Because we're humans, and sometimes it's just the thing that our brains take us to, but
Right.
it's so important to say like, hey, just stay present and stay in the moment. And to the advice you got is like, hey, those worries really don't quantify when we think about it. They just end up, putting us on a path to drain our energy.
Yep.
And so being mindful of that. Well, Lori, I am so gracious for the time that you spent. I have gotten so many nuggets, and I feel like our listeners are really just going to take heed to all of the insight and all of the tips that you've given. So we truly thank you for coming to the POW Factor. And yeah, looking forward to the future and watching and continuing to watch your success.
Oh, yours too, Jory. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Wow. Oh my gosh, guys. I got so much insight from Lori and from that episode. What really hit me is on non-negotiables and really understanding what you need and what you want to continue to direct your path, whatever that looks like for you. And that really speaks to when you want to make a transition, or when you want to elevate, or when you want to make a pivot, and understanding the things that you would define as your non-negotiables as you continue down your path. Well, that ends season 1 of the POW Factor. Until season 2, where we will continue interviewing powerhouse women who are dominating in their fields. Until next time, remember to embrace your POW Factor and keep shining as the powerhouse woman that you are. I'm Jory Mundy. Remember to stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep leading with purpose.